Great. So welcome everybody in to our February meeting, and we have a pretty packed schedule, so I'm going to dive right in if we can. First order of business will be approving the January general meeting minutes. So I'm going to share my screen, and we can scroll these briefly here. Is that working for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will zoom in a little bit, and then I'm just going to scroll here, and I will stay quiet. But if you see anything you would like to call out, please interrupt.
We'll just toss in the PM there at call to order 7:03.
Yeah, perfect.
I do think, yeah, so like Paul, Leslie, Juan, or at least Paul should be up with the board members present, correct? And then everybody there is, most people there are members, not guests, and the guests would just be the speakers. Am I?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on Drew. I don't know how this was kind of formatted, but yeah, Paul, Leslie, Juan would be board, and then
Okay, you can switch them. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember who is a board member, who is a regular member, who is a guest. So whatever you need to do there.
okay, got it. We'll do some copy paste here. Okay, and then let's just change this to maybe members.
Okay, the thing that says old business, December general meeting minutes approval needed, you need to have that there was a motion, who made the motion, who seconded it, and that they were approved.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't recall. We'd have to maybe refer back to the YouTube, I guess, since we recorded it. Yeah, no, RJ, do you mind just taking a look at that real quick? See if you can try and get to that while I keep scrolling. Okay, thanks. All right, we have some other people joining, so just bear with us for a second. We're approving last month's minutes, and we'll get into it.
Oh, let me make sure I got everything put up.
Oops. I'm just going to change this to just to make it more clear. Okay. RJ, did you have the approval for the previous meeting minutes?
So in a fun twist of fate. We hit record after we approved the minutes. We started the recording once we entered the rest of the meeting.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, what should we do here, folks? I don't know, Brittany, do you have any suggestions, maybe?
There's a very high probability I moved to approve because I always try to save time by saying that as soon as possible. Just telling you.
I was gonna say it was Paul that I'm pretty sure made the motion.
So, okay. But yeah, I guess that still doesn't help with who seconded.
It was probably RJ.
I would just end up saying at this point, unless somebody else can really recall it or whatever, that the December general meeting minutes, motion was made, seconded, and they were approved.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. We'll keep that in mind here, and well, now that we're recording too, we'll have a nice record of it. So, okay, with that last change, do I hear a motion to approve the January general minutes?
You need to take out the needed
Yes.
because it's no longer needed.
General minute. Oh, right. Approved.
Yes.
There we go.
And a space after approved and before the parentheses. Whatever. And I so move.
Okay, Paul
Told you.
moves.
Told you.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
Sorry,
All in
who
favor?
was it that just said I'll second that? Sorry, I don't want to have to do this again.
Oh, RJ seconded. Paul
RJ, thank
made a motion. Yep. All in favor to approve the meeting minutes, please raise your hand either in video or on the Zoom. I can't see, so let me see here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of 11. I'm seeing. Sorry, I'm scrolling the screens. Out of 32, so we're gonna need. I counted 11, unless one. Actually, if you could, you do the Zoom way so that we can actually just. It makes it a little easier without the. Without looking at the videos here. So raise your hand if you vote to approve the meeting minutes we just reviewed. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
And you need to remember that we have two Leslie and
Oh, right.
But yeah.
are on the same one.
Okay, so that counting them as 2, I counted 17. Carol is raising her hand too. Okay.
Okay.
So that gives us a simple majority. We only needed 16. Well, now we have 33 people. Let's say a simple majority since that person was just joining. So that gives us 17 and the minutes are approved.
Patrick, there's a little bit in the chat. I do think there's a little bit to go over there for folks joining for the first time.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so just looking here at the questions. Yeah, so Paul is so Michelle looking at this here, what makes someone a member? Looks like Paul exactly, yeah, right. Anyone who lives or works in St. John's, and by live we mean rent, own, or otherwise, and or works is what's according to our bylaws. So any member of the general public that falls within that category is technically a member. Carol is raising her hand too for the new folks who say who is eligible to vote. Yeah, so for everybody that is attending is technically eligible to vote on approving meeting minutes. I live here and work here, but how would anyone know? Roll call, digital sign in. I don't even know if my vote counts for anything. Okay. Yeah, so we do take roll call on every single Zoom meeting. And are there people on the call who aren't voting members? Yes. So I noted that as far as who was voting. Like I saw some folks that are not members that weren't voting. If you are in Cathedral Park, technically, does that count as St. John's? So within our bylaws as SJNA, we are open to Cathedral Park residents to join. I'm not a voting member. Attend meetings. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, I will continue this along then. Again, great questions. All definitely welcome if you want to continue those. But I will jump down to our agenda here for today. So sorry, bear with me 1 second. Pull those up. Oops. Just pulled up Juan's Spanish language version, which I will not try and go through that. All right, so a few things here. And actually, yeah, we're running great on time. So I had new business being the first item on the agenda, being a short 5 to 10 minute Frog Ferry update. So I know, Susan, you're on and wanted to potentially kick it to you all to start us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick and RJ. Thank you very much for bringing us here today. And shout out to Jose. I know he's moved on. He's been so great to work with. Amy Snyder's on the call, our VP of Marketing, and she and I had some great discussions with him. I also want to point out Shannon Carney with Commissioner Mingus Mapp's office is on. She's going to share a little bit from the Commissioner's office in just a minute. And also Captain Peter Wilcox, if you can wave, there you are, is on our team as well. He's decarbonizing the Inland Passage and is just instrumental to our work as we pursue an electrified ferry service. I know many of you don't have your screens up, but those of you that I can see you, can you give me a thumbs up if you've heard anything about Frog Ferry? It's so hard to know. Okay, so maybe about half of you. And I can tell you that I'm going to be presenting at North Portland Doers this Wednesday night. If any of you would like a full overview at 7 o'clock, or you can just reach out to me, Susan@frogferry.com, or if you have any questions. This is super, super brief. But
hey, sorry, Susan, could you just introduce yourself to the broader team for those that, yeah.
I will. So my name is Susan Bladholm, and I'm the founder and president of Frog Ferry. And our mission is, as a nonprofit, to bring an electrified public passenger ferry service to the Portland metropolitan area. And we started on this effort almost 6 years ago. We've mapped out 10 different dock sites from Vancouver all the way down to Oregon City, but we needed to start someplace with the first service. And after a lot of outreach to each one of those 10 locations, really it was working with the St. John's and the Cathedral Park neighborhood associations where there was just the greatest interest. And pre-pandemic, we had a number of open houses there in the area, and just seeing that your community there in the North Peninsula has very few transit options. And so we just really felt the outpouring of support and received letters of support from all of you, and then have been really focused on the feasibility studies and a number of demand model studies. And all of those are posted out on our website. We did this work in tandem with PBOT, ODOT, TriMet, and Metro. And we're now at a point where, with all of those studies, clearly show the feasibility and also the cost effectiveness of a ferry. And as many of you have heard from the Biden administration, there are unprecedented numbers of budgets available for passenger ferries. And in fact, until a year ago, the annual passenger ferry fund with the Federal Transportation Administration was about $40 million. It's now over $300 million. So there's never been a better time to start a passenger ferry service. Some of you may have heard almost a year ago that we had a skirmish with Commissioner Hardesty and TriMet over a grant that we had applied for state funds. And we reconciled that dispute last July and have continued to move forward. Our board is very strong. We've got an incredible stakeholder group, and candidly, the goals and objectives map really well to the city of Portland. Where we are now is we must have a partner in the city of Portland. We as a nonprofit cannot directly apply for state or federal funds. And our governance system is loosely like the Portland streetcar in that we would have our nonprofit board, and we want to get more public representatives on our board, and then we would contract out the ferry operations, and we'd work with the city. Oh, there's someone there. We'd work with the city in terms of they've got the ownership of the docks and for the vessel. So we have been in meetings, particularly with 3 commissioners, and Commissioner Mapps, Commissioner Ryan, and Commissioner Gonzalez, for this effort. And really at the point now where we need to partner in a meaningful way to get in something that's called the Regional Transportation Plan. We need to partner in anticipation of the Federal Transportation Administration grant program opening up this June. And we need some kind of bridge funding to help us move forward, particularly because we've largely funded this through like Murdoch Trust and private donations. And now we're just at a point after 6 years where we really need the city to step up. And we're offering about a 9-to-1 or 10-to-1 match for whatever the city puts in. We think we can match it with federal and other dollars. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Shannon, who leads policy for Commissioner Mapps' office.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Hi, everyone. This is an honor to be at the St. John's Neighborhood Association. I'm definitely a visitor. My neighborhood association is the Southwest Regional Hills League. So zooming in from the other side of town, if you will. As many of you know, my boss, Commissioner Mapps, has been a champion of this project since he took office. And we took a run at it last year, and we are in conversations with Susan, as well as with Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Ryan on how we can get this back on the city council agenda for this year. So one big step, it's always going to start with good news. The one big step in that process is Commissioner Mapps is now the oversees transportation, which is not really, it's certainly a key factor in establishing a ferry system. Although I will say that ferries, are more than transportation. It's certainly something where we'll need to be working with parks and with bureaus like Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I see some of you here today to really make this work. So, but clearly transportation is a big player in the success of this project. So one thing that we've been able to do is we have Frog Ferry on track to be submitted to Metro Council as part of the Regional Transportation Plan. That submission happens at the end of this week, February 17th. And that's really the first step in a process of creating the next 5 years of this planning and investment document that essentially governs, and many of you probably know this even better than me, but it governs which projects can receive federal funding. So that's a really important step for something like this, where we anticipate that a lot of the resources that would support this project, especially initially, are going to come from that Marine Transit grant and some of the other federal funding that's available. So we're really excited about that. And I think, it's certainly in progress, but it's looking good as a way to really enhance our portfolio in this region. So it will be submitted by the city and county. And so, as Susan alluded to, and I mentioned, have been working with some other offices closely in terms of figuring out the other pieces of this puzzle, right? So how can we demonstrate support over the next 6 months? And what does that look like on the city side to enable Frog Ferry to really make a good partnership play at some of this federal funding and the big grant opportunity in the summer. So that's a little bit more TBD, but I think there's certainly some conversations in the works on the policy side. Commissioner Gonzalez oversees the Bureau of Emergency Management, and I think is realizing more and more what a key factor having a ferry system, how much that would aid our city's emergency management function in the event of a Cascadia earthquake or any number of other situations. So that's really exciting. Our office is also going to be producing a policy document on reducing greenhouse gas in transportation sector. So I anticipate that we'll be able to fold in the ferry system as being a part of that effort. And then really it's a matter of working together and garnering support from other members of council to authorize a grant application and provide a city match a little bit later in the year. So it's all to say that's a little bit of a preview of what we've been working on. And I think with some good problem solving, we will be successful. And honestly, thanks to Susan's and her team's valiant efforts and keeping this alive. So excited to say that it certainly is, and I think better chance than ever. So want to share that with everybody.
Cool. Shannon, thank you so much. Shannon is our #1 champion there at City Hall. She's so awesome. I'm pretty sure someday she's going to be our future governor. And I'm not just saying that, I really mean it. So appreciate all of your efforts. So what does this mean for all of you on this call is we could really use your help. As you can see, we're really at a tipping point for this project, and we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. We are looking at the south dock there at Cathedral Park. We did the feasibility study based on the south block there at the boat ramp, but we'd really like to get some federal money to put some upgrades into that dock and put a railing on it and have that be for mixed use, so that it can be better launching for kayaks and canoes and stand-up paddle boards and that sort of thing, and just really help round out the amenities there at Cathedral Park. We're looking for a board member or two from the neighborhood. We would love to have that as kind of a liaison and making sure everything in our planning effort really comports with your goals there for the neighborhood. This is a very, very collaborative effort. This is a grassroots effort. So it's not like a typical kind of public agency going in and planning that's binary. This is very much kind of crowdsourcing and all of us working together. So we really want to make sure we're in lockstep with the neighborhood. And then also on occasion, we need community leaders like you to provide testimony at City Hall. We may be going back to City Hall in the next several months, and also letters of support. And I would like to ask for your board here to consider an updated letter of support from Patrick and RJ, and I'm happy to draft it. We have some from past years, but they get a little bit stale and out of date. So if you have any questions, if you're curious, or if you just know nothing about Frog Ferry, but you're like, gosh, I've always wondered why we don't have water-based transit out of the area, feel free just to reach out to me via email. And it's just, again, Susan at Frog Ferry, FROGFERRY. And we'll be happy to address any questions you might have.
Cool. Susan, I see there's one in the chat here. We're a few minutes early, so if you're okay, I could kick you a little update, but looks like Travis is asking, is there an updated dock design ferry mixed with kayak launch at the moment?
We don't yet. So we had a kind of a dock plan for the boat ramp, and that's that can be found under the research page on our website under the operational feasibility study. However, we've moved it, and some of that is working with the EPA and the soil sediment audit as well, and looking at the best location. And then Shannon's colleagues at Parks also have a point of view on the docks and are suggesting we move it down to what some of you call the fishing pier. So that is part of the work that needs to be done in one of the upcoming studies we have. It's called the pilot operations plan for that dock design. So no, we don't yet on that. But that's in the works, and candidly would love to work with some of your team members there on what you think should be included in that, because we're not going to go just do a design on our own. The other thing is we are working with Convergence Architects, and they are creating kind of a rendering of what the overall area around the dock could look like. And if we had food carts there, if we had bike rentals there. So it's kind of an inspirational sketch really of how a ferry could provide additional amenities there to the area. Who do you project as users? So our number one priority are really the commuters. That's kind of our bread and butter to get started with just one vessel and point to point. So Amy and I have been working with OHSU, and OHSU conducted a survey of their employees. Amy, do you want to give a real quick update on the findings?
Yeah, sure. The OHSU's community sent out a survey to both employees and members that are using the facilities there. I think they targeted zip codes in and around the St. John's area. I think 1,000 people were surveyed and they got 800 responses, and it was overwhelming that people really wanted to use the ferry service to commute down to OHSU. So the demand is there. They're ready to take it in rain or shine. And they're really looking at it as a way to help the environment and save on commuting costs.
Great. And on our research tab on our website, we have the actual statistics from that survey on there. But that said, anyone can take the ferry there. It's not exclusive to OHSU, and particularly on Saturdays for service. We would hope that your friends and families would be taking the ferry down to Midtown, or occasional trips to OMSI and things like that.
Great. Well, we're at time, but we'll do one more question here, and then I have to kick it over to our friends in Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. But it looks like where are the other 10 docks being considered was a question from Michelle.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And if you pop over to frogferry.com, you can find the outline of the docks. But starting from Vancouver to Cathedral Park, and then to the Modus Center, it's called the Duckworth Dock there. Then a future dock at Salmon Street Fountain, that one doesn't exist yet. And then OMSI, River Place, Milwaukee, and Oregon City.
Great. Well, thank you as always, Susan. It's always a pleasure. And yeah, whatever, anything that we want to inform the community, you know how to get a hold of us, and the community members will definitely know that we will be including and providing any updates as we have them. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. And then we're going to move it along here. So the next item on the agenda here is our friends at Bureau of Planning and Sustainability on a wetlands zoning update. And so I know we have Daniel and I believe some others here. So I will kick it over to your team if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you. My name is Daniel Sobing, and I'm joined today by my colleague Jessica Mooring. And I'm wondering if we're able to share our screens to do a quick PowerPoint.
Yeah, let me give you the. Sorry, let me give you.
Participants can. That's turned on, Patrick.
Oh, it is.
Oh, is it turned on? Great.
You should be able to. And then just from a time standpoint, let's just say about 20-minute for a presentation, and then an extra 10 for Q&A. So we'll just keep an eye on the clock for around like 8 o'clock. If we can try and wrap before then, that'd be great.
Sounds great. If we're running late, please cut me off, but I'll try to be quick. So again, Daniel Sobing, joined today by my colleague Jessica Mooring. We're with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. We're here to talk to you about the Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands Environmental Overlay Zone project. And next slide, please. So this is a brief outline of our presentation. We're going to talk to you about environmental overlay zones and explain how they work. We're going to talk about the history of environmental overlay zones and our process for remapping them. We're going to discuss briefly the relationship between this project and a related project called the Economic Opportunity Analysis. And we're going to talk about some public outreach that we're doing and give you a project timeline. So environmental overlay zones, often referred to as E-zones, are part of Portland's zoning code. They're applied to important natural resources like streams, sloughs, forests, wetlands, and important wildlife habitat. Within E-zones, there are limits to the amount of new development that can occur, and there are limits to impacts that can be made to trees, vegetation, and other natural resources. There are required setbacks from stream, sloughs, and water features. And within E-zones, development should either avoid creating new disturbances, or if impacts to natural resources are unavoidable, then mitigation is required. The Columbia Corridor and Industrial Lands E-Zone project will be updating E-Zone mapping in the Columbia Corridor and other primarily industrial areas around Portland. This will take place through a multi-step process. There are some impacts in and around the St. John's neighborhood, which is why we're coming to you today. But the impacts are kind of throughout the entire Columbia Corridor. So you're kind of at the extreme west end over there and extend all the way out to the far eastern edge of the city. We're currently at the first step of our process, which is to review and correct our natural resource mapping. We do this through site visits. And once we complete this step, we'll be working in conjunction with a team that's working on a citywide economic opportunity analysis, which we also refer to as the EOA. This collaboration will help to determine where environmental overlay zones will ultimately be located within the project area and how much area they will cover. So the basis of our mapping is natural resource inventory that we have online and available for review. And then we use this collaboration to kind of right size the E-zones. And ultimately we'll be holding hearings at the Planning Commission and then City Council. So the reason that we have E-zones is we have state land use planning goals that require us to do an inventory of all of the natural resources. Goal 5 tells us this. It tells us to determine which of those resources are significant and then to come up with a protection plan for those resources that we as a city decide are worthy and necessary to be protected. Metro, our regional government, also has requirements to protect natural resources through their Title 13 Nature and Neighborhoods program. And then we have the citywide adopted comprehensive plan, which also tells us that we need to update our natural resource protection and make sure that our natural resource inventory is up to date. So E-zones protect natural resources that provide critical habitat for threatened and endangered species. This is important, and it's something that Portland is required to do by federal and state law, but E-zones also serve other purposes that protect human health and property. In short, natural resources provide critical infrastructure. Vegetation absorbs rainfall, it prevents erosion and landslides. Trees literally hold steep hillsides in place. Streams and wetlands help to retain and convey stormwater, and they prevent downstream flooding. And by preventing negative outcomes like flooding and landslides, these resources help to make Portland more resilient to the effects of climate change, which we expect to include elevated peak summer temperatures and more intense rainfall events. So we know that development is going to happen in Portland. The population has been growing over recent decades, and we expect it to continue to grow. We know that people are going to keep building houses, dividing lots, developing undeveloped areas. And if we don't protect the resources that we have from this coming development, we will lose those resources and we will lose the ecosystem services that are provided by those resources. And that would have a negative consequence for the city. And if we lose resources, we would have to compensate by building gray infrastructure, concrete and steel, that would replace those trees and natural vegetation that we're trying to protect. So a little bit more about environmental overlay zones. They come in two flavors. There's the conservation zone and the protection zone. The conservation zone is typically applied to forest vegetation and some wildlife habitat. With the conservation zone, we colloquially refer to as the construction zone. It's a place that new development can happen within limits. But when development happens in the conservation zone, mitigation is required for impacts to natural resources. The other flavor of the environmental overlay zones is the protection zone. Protection zone is much more restrictive. It's something that we apply to the most important natural resources like streams, sloughs, and wetlands. Within that protection zone, pretty much all new development is prohibited except for public infrastructure, stormwater outfalls, levees, pump stations, and streets and things like that. But if you have a private property lot that has a protection zone, basically development cannot occur within that protection zone. It has to be located outside. So some history about environmental overlay zones. We've had them going back to at least 1989, and we've had at least 13 different area-specific natural resource protection plans that were adopted in different parts of the city over the course of several decades. Most recently, we updated E-zones, the environmental overlay zones, through the majority of the city with the exclusion of the Columbia Corridor and a few other industrial areas. And that project wrapped up in 2022, and now we are moving on and completing. And can we move on to the next slide, please? Yeah, so this shows all these colored areas. That was where the environmental overlay zone project updated the existing E-zones. The 2 areas that are circled in red were areas that were excluded from that previous project, and we were just pushing that off until a later date. Next slide. So this is our current project area. These are the areas that were circled in that previous slide. They're the areas that were excluded from that previous project. And then next slide. And then way over at the far east side of the city, the South Shore Plan area, we circle that just because it's an area that has its own special environmental code. And there's going to be, this project will propose some amendments to the code that applies there because it's a little different from the rest of the city. Probably don't need to go into too much detail there because that's far away from you guys in St. John's. So this is a typical industrial site that has an environmental overlay zone running through it. On this slide, the dotted line is intended to represent the edge of that environmental zone. That the environmental zone encompasses a slough that's running through this site, or a stream, and the riparian vegetation that surrounds that stream. And oftentimes, as on this site, the edge of the environmental zone actually encroaches onto the developed area of the site. That's not at all unusual, and it's not a mistake. We typically apply E-zones that extend the specified distance away from the top of bank of those water features. And sometimes that means that they will cover the part of the paved lot. It may even run through the building, as it does in this case. There are exemptions in the code that applies to these zones. It says all existing development is exempt. So, and that means that structures and paved areas can remain and continue to be used. If the building needed to be replaced, as long as the footprint wasn't expanded, that building could be replaced even though the environmental zone runs through it. Same thing with the paved area on the site. But expansions of development within that dotted line, which is the edge of that environmental zone, could be restricted under some circumstances. Move on to the next slide. And so this is a residential site. Same thing applies to the residential site. Again, environmental zone running through part of the house. The house is exempt from the E-zones. It could be repaired and replaced within its existing footprint. The environmental zone runs through a lawn. The owner of this house could continue to maintain that lawn. They could replace their fence if they wanted to, but if they wanted to expand their house, they'd have to do it away from the environmental zone, or some mitigation might be required. Next slide. So what's included in this project, we're updating natural resource data, proposing some zoning map amendments, some zoning code changes potentially, and then we're doing this in conjunction with the economic opportunity analysis, making sure that we're right sizing these E-zones to make sure that we have adequate industrial land capacity. Next slide. This is an example of an area where we already know that an update to the E-zones is needed. This is a branch of the Columbia Slough. You can see upstream and downstream, those crosshatch areas are existing environmental overlay zones that are already in place, but then right in the middle, there is a branch of that same slough that was left unprotected when these original E-zones were adopted 30 years ago. Don't know why they didn't apply E-zones there, but they should have applied the E-zones to the whole slough to protect that feature from development. And so this is an area where we would be proposing changes, applying E-zones to that unprotected branch of the Columbia Slough there, and potentially making some changes to other parts as well. And again, the E-zone remapping will be based on our natural resource inventory. Our natural resource inventory is remote sensing based, so aerial imagery, LiDAR, things that are either captured from satellites or from planes that flew overhead to capture imagery for us. And we want to ground truth that data. So we're offering site visits to come out and make sure that our inventory is correct. We don't want to just apply E-zones to lines on the map. We want to make sure that those lines are actually reflecting where the natural resources are located. And I will turn it over to Jessica. She's going to run through our E-zone map app, which is a feature that you can use to look up your site online, and talk to you a little bit more about some of our public outreach efforts.
Thanks, Daniel. So in September of 2022, postcards were sent to all the owners of all properties that have existing or draft E-zones on them. And when the postcards were mailed, we also posted the map app that shows where the draft E-zones are likely to be applied in the future. So that the hope is that people will look at the site, at their site on the map to see what the draft E-zones and natural resource data looks like. And if there are any questions or comments or concerns, that they can contact us, if we can either go out and physically look at the site or answer those emails. So I will now reshare my screen and we can walk through the map app really quickly. All right, so you should be seeing the CCIL Environmental Project map app. And so on this landing screen, we see the entire project area marked in the shaded areas. So this is the entire project area. And if we want to get a finer level of details, we can use the address box in the upper left-hand corner to go to a specific site. I already have one highlighted, so we'll just jump into this one. Great, so now we're at a finer level. We can see this cross-hatching. And to look at what that is, in the upper right-hand corner, we have 3 options. The first is going to be our legend. So currently we can see the draft protection zone in the red cross-hatching and the conservation zone in the green cross-hatching. We can also turn on different base layers so we can see some aerial imagery. And then we can also turn on some different features to look at what else is mapped on this site. So if we want to toggle between the existing and the proposed, we can see behind the cross-hatching in the solid color is going to be our existing environmental overlay zones. So the rust color is going to be the conservation zone and the P is going to be the protection zone. And we can also go back to our list so we can look at the different natural resources that are mapped on this site. Let's turn off the environmental overlay zones. Great, so we can see that we have some different riparian and wildlife resource values on this site, as well as we have a stream, a water feature mapped at the top. So if you want to look at some more information about the site, on this right-hand side, we have the property information. We have the overlay zones that are on it, the basin overlay zones that are not subject to change. We have the natural resources that are mapped, as well as some explanation about what those mean. And to look at the methodology behind the mapped E-zones, we can go to our mapping protocol summary. So our project area is broken up into resource sites, and we can see that we are currently on resource site CC5. So if we were to go to the mapping protocols and scroll down to resource site CC5, we can see all the methodology behind what is applying E-zones to that site. If you still have questions or concerns after looking through this information, we have a request site visit button where you can request a site visit, or if you want to contact us by phone number or email, that is also available. I'll now bring us back to the presentation. Great, so outreach so far has been focused on generating interest in those site visits. The mailers that we sent were sent to approximately 1,700 property owners. So from those mailers, we received many phone calls and emails with questions about the proposals and the natural resource mapping. We've completed site visits so far. We have more scheduled. And we're also doing other neighborhood association meetings similar to this one, where we are providing information and answering any questions. And as the project progresses and the proposals are refined, we anticipate that there will be a second round of mailers to be sent to property owners. Also, in conjunction with the Bureau of Environmental Services, wetland determinations for property owners who requested them during site visits will be conducted. And then later in this project, the EOA team will be convening advisory groups and meetings with stakeholders to refine the policy proposals. And the E-zone, we, the E-zone staff, will participate in those discussions, and the outcomes will help to influence the final E-zone mapping proposals.
Hey, Jessica, just a heads up, we're seeing the presenter view here with the notes. Could you maybe full screen or share the other one for us so we can read it better?
I'm sorry.
No worries.
See.
Much better, thank you.
Too far. Okay. And I'll turn it back to Daniel for some final slides.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, okay. My microphone is on. Thanks. So I mentioned earlier on in the presentation that we have E-zones, and the reason we have E-zones is to comply with statewide land use planning goal 5. There's another land use planning goal that we are also trying to comply with. That's goal 9. That's why we're doing the economic opportunity analysis. So just, reiterating the connection between the E-zone project and the economic opportunity analysis, and the fact that we have these competing interests of protecting natural resources and ensuring that we have adequate industrial land supply to meet future job growth needs. It's a balancing act that we as a city and all jurisdictions in the state of Oregon are required to do to make sure that we are meeting multiple different goals and priorities. So we want to protect natural resources, but we also want to make sure that we have jobs. Next slide. So this is kind of a timeline of our project. So as Jessica said, we've been doing outreach starting in September when those mailers went out. The map app has been posted online since then. We intend to continue doing site visits as long as we are getting requests for them. So we're doing those now. We're doing those right up until public hearings. Later on this year, we're going to release a public draft of our proposed E-zones that will be more refined than what we're currently showing on the map app. We'll finalize our recommendations in conjunction with the economic opportunities analysis, and then late in this year, early in 2024, we'll move on to public hearings. So we're hoping that if people go on the map app, they'll look up their site, and if they see an E-zone there, that if they have any questions about why we're applying E-zones where we are, that they will contact us and request a site visit, so we can go out and have a conversation with them in person. Even if people just have questions, I'm happy to go out and do site visits. So we want to make sure our data is correct. We want to make sure people understand why E-zones are being applied where they are proposed. So we have a final slide here that's got contact information for project staff. So if people want to request a site visit, ask more about the E-zone project, please contact us at these, either by email or by phone. And we'll be available for a few more minutes if people have any questions about this project or about E-zones in general.
Great. Yeah, great timing. We'll open it up to anybody that has any questions for the folks here. Looks like we have one in the chat. Yeah, example of mitigation.
Yeah, mitigation. So let's say that you have a vacant lot that's covered by forest, and you want to build a house on that vacant lot. And in order to build that house, you have to cut down a number of trees, or maybe encroach in the area around the stream. Then you would propose mitigation. In any time in Portland, you're cutting down trees, there's going to be some replanting requirements, but within the E-zones, the replanting requirements are a little bit higher than they would be elsewhere. So in another part of the city, it might be a 1-for-1 replacement to cut down a tree. In the E-zone, it might be a 3-for-1 replacement requirement to cut down a tree. There are other examples of mitigation. If the impacts are specifically to streams or wetlands, you might be required to build a constructed wetland or do some stream enhancement, like laying back the bank of the stream to provide more habitat for wildlife in the stream. It kind of depends on what type of impact is being proposed as to what type of mitigation is required. But I think the most common one would be planting native vegetation like streams or shrubs or things like that.
Cool. Any additional questions from anybody for the folks on the call? It looks like
Pollution, not so much. No, I mean, there are Superfund sites down near the river in Cathedral Park, and those are being addressed through a separate process that's being negotiated with stakeholders, the federal government, and a number of other entities in the area. And the kind of Superfund related things supersede and are unrelated to the E-zones to a large extent. So we're not really addressing that at all through this project, but there is an ongoing process that that has addressed cleanup on some of those sites and will continue to address cleanup because there is a massive issue all along the Willamette waterfront that still needs to be addressed. There are some sites that have Superfund issues that also have E-zones, and so we would expect that if permitting happens for development or for resource enhancement or protection on those sites, that they would also address the issues that are expected to be addressed through the E-zones, such as mitigation for natural resource impacts. But they're kind of separate issues, and the E-zones, there's nothing in the code that applies to the E-zones that governs the use of chemicals or anything else. If it's allowed by state or federal regulations, then it's also allowed within the E-zones as far as those chemicals go.
So I have a quick question. It might be two, but essentially like the main call to action for this, both I guess for the public and then for like the board of SJNA. It seems like for the board, it's share the map tool update that this is a process to participate in, and then also share when the like public hearings open up. And then it sounds like maybe for just general members, general residents, it's to check out that map tool and see if there's anything sort of relevant to them. Do I understand that correctly? Is that sort of like the main call to action right now for this?
Yeah, that is exactly. So we're coming to St. John's Neighborhood Association to try to get the word out, and we're hoping that the board can assist us with that, just disseminating information, letting people know the project's happening, and asking people to follow along, comment when the public comment period begins later this year and early in 2024 if people have comments, and yeah, just follow along and contact project staff if anybody has any questions.
Cool. Yeah, and Daniel, that's not a problem. We'll definitely include at minimum in the next few newsletters, and yeah, you and I can communicate on our email chain any specific updates impacting the neighborhood. I was curious, actually, one little small piece here, but I was just looking at the map. I think the tool is great. Yeah, thank you for doing this. I personally am like a huge map nerd, so I just love like zooming in and looking at all this stuff. But but I did notice there were some areas over by Chimney Park, and was wondering, I guess, what is the kind of relationship working back with like Parks and Rec on any properties that are impacting Parks and Rec or dog parks or any sort of kind of developments and whatnot within those areas?
Yeah, so city entities and other bureaus within the city are also required to follow the rules and regulations that apply to the E-zone. So anytime that construction development is proposed in an area that's covered by an E-zone, they'd follow the same mitigation requirements, same permitting requirements, potentially land use review requirements for any impacts that occur. We do definitely communicate with all of our partner bureaus around the city. So we work really closely with the Bureau of Environmental Services, and we're also in communication with the Parks Bureau and others to make sure that, you know, we've been asking them to review our mapping as well. And if they have questions or concerns, they bring those to us as well. And we do the same kind of public comment process with them to make sure that we're not missing anything or we're not inappropriately applying E-zones. I think most of Chimney Park, so Chimney Park is kind of divided. There's an industrial side that's kind of the just to the north and west of Chimney Park, and then Chimney Park itself. I think Chimney Park was covered in the last project because the zoning of that particular area was not industrial, so it wasn't excluded from that project. So some of the E-zones have already been updated in that general area, but then the area that's to the north and west of Chimney Park would be included in this area because that's all industrial. So we show there's some wetlands over there and forest vegetation we'd be applying E-zones to.
Cool. Well, great. Well, we're a couple minutes early here, so thank you for staying punctual. I really appreciate it. And yeah, absolutely. If there's any additional updates that we want to get in front of the community, we can be in contact and would love to have you back. We appreciate the due diligence and letting everybody know on some of these updates. Yeah, so I think with that, I want to say thank you again for hopping on. And, like I said, for everybody else on the call, we'll be sure to keep everybody informed, keep your eye on the newsletter for any additional updates, and be sure to check out this awesome map that was linked from Jessica in the chat. I think it's really, really interesting to take a look at. So yeah, thanks so much.
Yes, thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Alrighty. Well, I will keep us along. I'm actually going to jump in and add a new item just to the new business here, since we're a couple minutes early, but wanted to give Josh a few minutes, if that works for you, to provide a quick Bazaar announcement.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Patrick. I just wanted to let everybody know that the St. John's Bazaar is coming back for the first time since 2019. And for folks who are new to the neighborhood and haven't heard of the Bazaar, it is a street festival that happens the same day as the St. John's Parade, which, knock on wood, is also coming back. We're still waiting for full confirmation of that, but I think it's in progress. Wanted to just kind of, as part of planning for the Bazaar, need to do public announcements about our street closure that'll be happening. And this is all May 13th, second Saturday in May. So we'll be closing Lombard from John Street to Baltimore from 10 in the morning until about 8 at night. The parade will obviously go through that route as well, and we'll move our barricades for that. But otherwise, Lombard will be closed there, and then we'll be closing Levitt Street between Kellogg and Ivanhoe, Burlington between Kellogg and Lombard, and then Alta between the dairy or the Burgerville drive-through and Lombard, and Philadelphia Street off the bridge as well. And we'll have street vendors on several of those streets. We'll have a stage set up in the plaza, and we'll have a second stage that we're still figuring out where it's going to go. And then I'm just going to drop into the chat the website for the Bazaar, so folks can check it out. And then the vendor application thing, because if you know people that do booths and want to be a vendor at the Bazaar, we're accepting applications for those right now. And it will be free for everybody to come. We'll have a beer garden, some activities in the streets that's closed, and then plenty of vendors. And awesome. I've got a moment for questions if anybody wants to ask any. And just want to plug, we'll also be looking for volunteers, and we'll have volunteer roles figured out in March and April.
Well, I, for one, Josh, am over the moon about this. This is going to be huge for the community. I know we're all, I feel like I can speak for everybody on here that's ever been. We will be lucky to have this event back. It's huge for the community, and it's going to be great. And then also, we will be, just for the general public as well, on our next board meeting coming up in a few weeks, we will be bringing to the table to potentially be a fiscal sponsor as well, working with Josh to make sure that we, as SJNA, are showing up. And we would love to see everyone's smiling faces and come say hi when we have that. But more info to come on that regard. But Josh, open invitation on any generals leading up to it. Would love to have you here. And if you want to give a few little updates as we go, that'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, we're planning on coming to the next one that you have in person.
Great. Yes. Yeah. What a segue. Couldn't have set that up better. The next item on the agenda actually is the March General in-person discussion. So we as a board have actually secured James John Elementary Auditorium for the remainder of the school year. Was trying to do it for tonight, but due to some life circumstances and whatnot, just was a little too tight by the time we heard on how we could pull it off. So I will be going to James John and trying to work out some of the tech challenges that we're going to have here, but the intention is to have it hybrid. I really hope we can make that happen. But want to let everybody know that the March, as I'm flipping my calendar, 13th meeting will be at James John. And again, we'll be working on a hybrid solution. Worst case, I hope it doesn't come to this, but worst case, we might just be in person. But anyway, I will include that in the newsletter as well. Exciting information, and we'll see how it goes. But again, would love to see you all in person, and we'll figure out beyond the school year and inform everybody from there. All right, well, we are packed schedule here, so I am going to move this along and kick it over to Vice Chair RJ. Updates, please.
Hey folks, RJ DeMello, I'm the vice chair. I focus a lot of my time on cleanups, solve cleanups, and just general cleanups in the neighborhood. And so the first one to talk about is our February solve cleanup. I'm going to drop the link in the chat here. If y'all could join, that'd be wonderful. So we did one in October, and that was through the business district. So this time around, we really wanted to set out to hear from the community about where this could be, and anywhere in St. John's, make sure we're paying attention to the whole neighborhood. We've got a lot of different. There was a survey and different feedback at different meetings, and had a lot of different spots to explore. And so one weekend, I just drove to every one of those spots that were listed and took photos and sort of marked where the biggest need was. And two places really stuck out. And so the first was like Columbia Way, right as you get on Columbia. And then that corridor of Lombard as you enter the neighborhood. And actually right by Roosevelt High School. Those were the two areas where it seemed to identify the most trash of the ones that were listed. And so we came together as a board, we discussed and felt like the largest community impact and impact on people's lives would be that Lombard corridor and also down past Roosevelt High School. And so that is where we're going to be doing this cleanup. All the information is there, but we're going to meet in the Fred Meyer parking lot. They've opened up and we'll be able to toss everything in their dumpster once we are done. We will have routes mapped out for everybody to take, basically, so that there's no overlap. Like, people will have their own sort of sector, if you will, to go in and clean up and check out. And just to put names to it all, we'll do Lombard from Gilbert to probably Alma, and then we will do down Ida past Roosevelt all the way to Smith. And then from there, it'll be also a little bit need-based, based off of another little go around of the area just before the cleanup to see what the circumstance might be, and if there's another particular area that might really need it. But that's the plan for right now, for that cleanup. That is February 25th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We hope to see you there. Any questions, do let me know or reach out via email as well. My email is linked on the solve page there. And then we have a dumpster event coming up in April, on Earth Day, April 22nd. This is also, it's going to be in partnership with the St. John's Sustainability Committee. We've got a grant from Metro to hold this event. It'll be for disposal of trash, for recycling, for compost, and also harder to get rid of items like household batteries or old prescriptions and things like that. And so be on the lookout as we promote that event. Plan your spring cleaning around it if you want. And so there's gonna be a lot of opportunity there to sort of get ahead of any sort of like oncoming trash, rather than only being reactive and going to pick up as we do with the solve. So trying to take care of sort of both ends there. So more to come on that one, but focusing for right now on this February 25th solve cleanup, and then we'll really pivot and promote and get ready for that April 22nd one. So any questions, either let me know, I can answer now, chat me, email me, whatever it might be.
Hey, RJ, you sent me an email today. Hi, I'm Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
And I have the fourplex on North Hepner near Roosevelt. And so I'm leading a cleanup on March 25th, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing it on an ongoing basis, but I've owned that fourplex for a year and a half, and I've been fighting the trash and the needles and the carts and you know, people sleeping on my lawn and stuff like that for quite a while. So I'm just wondering if anybody wants to join mine, feel free. And I'll be getting the word out about that. But I wanted to make sure you were having yours too, because as I talked to the neighbors, they weren't aware of it.
Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, will your March 25th cleanup be through Solve, or will that just be sort of like a privately organized one there?
Well, I don't know what you call it. I called Solve and they're helping me, but I'm the host.
Yeah, okay.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. So like I'm technically the host for that, but yeah, you know, Solve provides the equipment and everything like that. And so, yeah, hopefully just make sure, send me your page that Solve, you know, you'll have through Solve if and when that's set up, and that can be something that we, you know, promote in a newsletter as another upcoming cleanup to have the word get out to the community there.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and Sandy, this is Patrick, but we can definitely include it to what RJ said on the newsletter, on our social media, and then also we do have a events calendar that I'll get added. So I don't know if I was on that same email chain, but yeah, we'll loop together and make sure that we're amplifying what you're working on as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. And the only last thing I did want to just mention with RJ and the Earth Day event is we're working very closely with the St. John's Sustainability Coalition, wonderful group within the neighborhood as well. So a lot more info to come, but we're going to be working very hand in hand with them to make sure that the Earth Day event comes off with a success, and then also partnering closely for future events with that organization, who I know that there may be a few folks on here as well. But yeah, really working with a lot of great organizations within our neighborhood that we all know and love. So really exciting news. Thank you, RJ. Alrighty, I am going to move this along then and go to treasurer, and I will pull up the, I'll share my screen here. 1 second. Whoops. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Bernadine.
Okay, well, this is from, and there is a typo right off the bat, I see. So this is from a starting date. Should say January 8th, 2023, and it should say February 12th, 2023. As you see, the next line says the beginning balance was as of January 8th and stuff. And this is what we had, was $1,783.77. We had no income this last month. We did have an expense of Google domains. That's for our domain name of stjohnspdx.org. Transferring from Wix to Google was $12. That was done on February 6th. So that was our only expense. This is then the balance of $1,771.77. And we have restricted funds left from the Day of the Child grant of $262.62. The board will be discussing this at the next board meeting. So our unrestricted balance is $1,509.15. Next is our art fund and stuff. And you can see that started the same dates of $100.04. No income, no expenses. We have $100.04 in that restricted fund. Then our bottle drop account. As you see, our beginning balance was $321.17. There were various numbers of bags dropped for $40. So we now have $361.17. And I just want to make note for people here, the reason I'm reading this, because some of you are seeing is because some aren't seeing it. They're on their phone. They can't see it. Can't see this. They called in and stuff. So I want to make sure that everybody hears what we have. Are there any questions?
I had just two small things, Bernadine, that I just wanted to mention. The first and foremost, just for the general public, I will be bringing a motion to our next board meeting, but unfortunately, our MailChimp subscription, which is offering, we're currently on the free plan, which was offering up to 2,000 subscribers, is going paid starting in March, which is, it is what it is. It's an expense I think we absolutely need to keep. So just want to give everybody a heads up that I will be bringing that to the board to hopefully be able to fund our wonderful newsletter that I love typing up so much for everybody. So that will be coming down the pike. And then I know Bernadine and I are also working together, and I was going to work together closely with the bank as well, to see if we can get a donate now button, since we are now a 501c3, up on our website, and potentially, I mean, I don't know all the logistical pieces, but like potentially if there's an opportunity as well when we are at the bazaar to have a donation opportunity as well. So
okay, I can tell you right off the bat that to go through the bank for that, we have to go through merchant services, and there is a fee. And it appears that it's probably a little bit expensive, but we have not, that's as much as I've gotten information on, and it never went beyond that, because it did come across with Jose when he was still chair that it was going to be a little bit on the expensive side and stuff, that adding PayPal to the webpage might be the cheapest way to go. But that
Okay.
was, now I'm talking 4 or 5 months ago. So let's continue the research on it.
okay, definitely. No, I think that's great. Cool. Anything else from your end, Bernadine?
Nothing else at this point, no.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We'll go down my list here. Safety and livability. Austin, some updates for us?
Yeah, let me share my screen here. Is my microphone working? It wasn't working earlier today.
Oh, it works perfectly.
Yeah.
Excellent. Restarting the computer helped. All right, let me share my screen here. Okay. All right. Okay, so some safety and livability updates. I attend the Northeast Public Safety Action Committee meeting every month, and it's attended by the Portland Police Bureau, and we often have guest speakers that talk about various safety related topics. Sergeant Ken Huntinghouse of the neighborhood response team is pretty frequent to those meetings, and he had some updates for us. We have a new North Precinct commander, Rob Simon, brand new. Another update we have is the Big Four Corners had some heavy duty fence that had been put up to try and prevent people from camping there. It was cut, and they're dealing with trying to remove people from that area. And in the Hollywood district, a serial bank robber suspect was caught. I don't have any more details about that, but I know that the police are when most of the time they're going from 911 call to 911 call. And when they're not doing that, they do have some special missions that they try and that they try and do. One of them was trying to address some of the shoplifting, which happens. I mean, it happens all the time, but it's really bad at Jansen Beach, especially during the holiday times. They arrested 12 to 15 shoplifters. A lot of the businesses there have a hands-off approach. They don't want to get in trouble with people, getting sued because they tried to physically stop someone who's shoplifting. So a lot of times people just kind of get away with things. And so the police were able to do a special mission there. And a lot of the people who were apprehended said that they were looking to fund their drug habits. So it's definitely a problem that we're still facing in our community.
Austin, a quick question from the chat of just Big Four Corners. Where exactly is that?
Yeah, so it's like a nature site. It's sorry, I don't have a map in front of me, but if you do a search for it, it's like a natural. I don't want to say it's like Forest Park, but it's like a nature area. And there was like over 100 over time, there was like over 100 RVs and such that had campers and whatnot, and it kind of turned into a little bit of a environmental hazard. And so last year the police and city moved people out of that area and are trying to keep people out because it had gotten so bad with waste and violence and whatnot, because there were just so many people in such a small area, which then tends to escalate problems. Some good news is that we are seeing, well, maybe for some people, we're seeing a rise in police staffing. There's an effort by city council to try and get officers who had left previously to return to the force. We historically have always had like a very few amount of officers considering the size of our city. We need something like 1,400 officers and we have 800, and really only 700 because 100 of those officers have to attend state academy. So they're not going to be on the street for another 18 months. So it's just something to think about if you are, asking for emergency services and you're like, how come no one's coming to help me? It's because we're so understaffed, and that's why. So some updates there. And finally, I'll just wrap this up with, I attended a problem solver meeting, which is the Public Environment Management Office. And they focus on trying to find solutions for cleaning up trash in the neighborhood, graffiti, illegal dumping and abandoned cars. And so I know some of you have, kind of brought up in our meetings like, hey, there's trash here, or there's like a problem in my neighborhood, and so I'm just letting you guys know that you can let me know if there's problem areas, and then I can try and bring that to those meetings and see if we can't get something going. So that kind of ends my recap of the meeting, and a lot of these notes are also we send out in the newsletter, and I try to attach some articles that I find that are relevant. Yeah, so feel free to ask any questions, or I see there's some things in chat maybe.
Oh, I think we were just getting to where that location was at.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, any other questions for Austin here? I know Austin is attending the monthly PSAC meetings as well, and he's communicating directly with the organizations and hearing any kind of community feedback or concerns.
Yeah, Austin, I'd like your contact info because I have that ongoing problem over there by Roosevelt.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let me put it in the chat here.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, since we're running a little late here, I'm going to just keep things moving if that's okay, and kick it over to land use. Mike, if you want to provide any
Yeah, I don't
updates.
really have a whole lot,
Okay.
Patrick, but I put 3 things in there just to get practice using the land use tracker. But there's a over in Hayden Meadows, there was a person, they were wanting to update an industrial thing, which I don't think anybody had a problem with that. In Kenton, somebody bought an old church and they were building a school there. And in the Piedmont area, there was a guy trying to build a woodwork cabinet shop. So I didn't think any of those were anything anybody need to be concerned about, but it's up there if you need to look at it.
Okay.
Do we want to briefly bring up the email like Mary got in that site at all? Bring that back around, or?
Yeah, that one was pretty new. I bet Mike probably hasn't had a chance to look through that, extensively. But I mean, we can open it up. I don't know, Mary or Mike, if you want to comment.
I know you had said we would not look at that right now, so I didn't know.
Okay.
I think, gosh, I think I have it right here, but I think there is a public comment or something. There's a meeting. So let me just look really fast. That might be something you attend to get more information.
Okay.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it as well.
Where is it? Thought I saw that. Oh, here it is. Time and date, February 23rd, 10:30 a.m. It's a Teams meeting. And Mike, I was thinking, maybe we should talk sometime. There's other land use folks and other neighborhood associations, and I'm meaning to get folks together, but, and go over what this, I don't know how familiar you are with all these notifications. So I'd love to, share what I know with you and
that'd be great.
People. Yeah. There's a contact down here, Sarah Taylor. I don't know if folks know Sarah, but she probably has an opinion about this. So you may want to check in with her.
Okay. Yeah, so that's saying neighborhood within 1,000 feet, Linton.
Yeah, she's Linton. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would have to look. I'm looking at this, satellite view. I'd have to look at Google to know where this actually is, but.
Well, it's out in Rivergate.
Yep. Which is weird that it's 1,000 feet from Linton, I guess. I guess maybe the river's not that wide, but
across the river, I guess. Yeah. But I'm thinking about the E-zone presentation that you just had. I was, kind of curious if that is impacting this property. I don't know. You could check on their map app.
Okay, sure.
If you wanted to, but yeah, Mike, let's, I'll put my contact info in the chat and let's connect, because I can, I know some of these folks here that are listed with BPS or BDS that you can just call and get more information.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. All righty. We will keep things going along here. Safer Together, Paul.
Hey, hi. So I was just looking at the people who are still in this meeting, and I think the pretty strong majority already know what Safer Together is. So I'm just going, for those that don't, I'm just going to tell you where to look to find out about our one-year program funded by the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management to hold 30 block parties in which we will talk about the importance of community solidarity in the face of natural disasters. But that's just one sentence, and you can find out more. I'm going to share the screen here because we have now on our SJNA website, which I think you can see, right? We have a Safer Together page. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows this is there. And if you look at the regular site, which you've seen before, if you scroll down, there's Safer Together. And look, we have the new Safer Together page and the Spanish version. And I really want to thank Juan for, I asked him if he could translate that, and it seemed like a couple of hours later, I had this whole, the Spanish version done. And let's just look at the Safer Together page, because I kind of like this. It's, see, by the way, if you want to look at the Spanish version, there you are. You're right in Spanish, but we'll go back to English because my English is better. So this describes the project in the background a little bit, talks about our partners, has some pictures which will evoke both the kinds of natural disasters that we might have and the importance and fun of block parties. And then the part I really want to call your attention to is this where it says, find out about hosting a block party. Because to do 30 block parties, we need to have 30 hosts. Right now, we actually have, and we have not publicized this much, and we already have 6 people who have signed up on our sign up list, which I'll show you in a second, and quite a number of others who have said, yes, I'd like to do this, just haven't signed up yet. So I think we're in good shape, but it's, getting 30, like I've been saying all along, the first 5 hosts is very easy. The last 5 hosts might be a little bit harder. But anyway, to make it very easy for hosts to host a block party, we're going to have this guide, flyers, sound system. We'll help you get a permit from PBEM, table where people can sign up, a 15-minute talk on disaster resilience. We'll have an assistant who can help with canvassing and logistics. And we'll try to tailor the block party to the particular interests and needs of the community. So some of these block parties, we hope, will be in Spanish. Anyway, so if you're interested in this at all, if you just click down here, it says, I'd like to talk about hosting. This will take you right to a very simple sign-up sheet. Name, email, where'd you hear about us? Do you have a date in mind? Where do you live? And that will, then we'll get back in touch with you. So that's one piece of news. Again, thanks very much, Juan, because that was done very quickly, but I think well, so I appreciate that. We're going to have a kickoff meeting 1 week from tomorrow, which will be on the 21st of March, Tuesday night. It'll be on Zoom at 7 o'clock. It's going to be the same link as this one. And this is just, will be like what we just presented, only with a little bit more detail. Have a chance to have feedback from everybody that comes to it. And Patrick, I'd like to send out an invitation. I'll talk to you about this, but maybe to all of our lists just for this one meeting. And we'll get people to sign up. We had very good news last week. We actually got a signed contract with the requisite signatures from the city. And somewhere in the US mail is a check or down payment check of $10,000 from the city, because most of what we're spending on is procuring various pieces of equipment. So we said, well, could you advance the payment? So, because normally they're going to give one quarter every 3 months. That just didn't work for us. They were very good. The city was very kind to send us this big advance up front. Kickoff meeting, website. That's it. That's all. I hope everybody will come to the kickoff meeting. If you haven't been to the website, take the time to read it. This was something that's going to be evolving a lot in the year. And Juan is also is a cinematographer, and he's going to be taking some videos in the first block parties so that we can put together a publicity video that we'll use to draw attention and support for subsequent ones. So that's all. Thank you, everybody here, because a lot of people here have either already signed up or have contributed their ideas and their good work already. Special shout out to Austin, who's been doing a lot of the work and will be doing a lot of the procurement. That's it. If there are any questions, I'll ask Austin to answer them.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, Paul, we can connect offline on that. But yeah.
Thanks, Michelle.
Work. Yes.
Good. Thank you. Hey, cool. All right. Thank you.
Very cool. Alrighty. We'll keep things moving here since we're over time. Boosters. Do we have Liz or anyone from the boosters on? I don't know. Carol, I don't know if you want to speak to that by any means. We can totally go past if not.
Hey, there's no update from Carol.
Okay, perfect. Alrighty, well then last but certainly not least, Drew Seymour, SJCO, with some updates if you have any.
Hey, good evening. It's David.
David, I'm sorry, so sorry.
It's okay. The only new updates I have are the St. John's Center for Opportunity will be recruiting for board members here shortly. Once I have that information, I'll put something out that's more formal. And we are still going strong with the storefront grant. We have probably approved close to $20,000 at this point, and we still have more to go. So please keep spreading the word to local businesses. We really want to spend this money. So please, I'm trying to give away a lot of money this year. But that is it. Short and sweet.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate all of your time. And as I mentioned, really hope to see you in 1 month's time on March 13th. Mark your calendar. James John, for better or worse, we're going to get back to it. RJ, did you have a note?
Yeah, sorry if you weren't going to close it out, but I was going to say, like, if there's anything from anybody else here, something that any community member wanted to raise or a question or anything like that.
While people are thinking through that, I do have a little announcement that I thank you for reminding me with Cliff Chapel. So I think you all maybe saw a note in the chat, but he reached out to me. He is from the St. John's All Nations Church of God in Christ, Buchanan, and they're offering vaccination clinics on Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m., and also free food boxes for anybody in need. Again, that's at the St. John's All Nations Church of God in Christ. Mary, looks like your hand's up.
Yeah, the Portland Engagement Project is hosting a listening session on February 23rd from 7 to 8. Some folks met with them February 6th, heard about the program. This is, about the neighborhood profiles. I don't know if folks are familiar with this or not. You are, but there's more information about, they're hoping to get more folks' feedback from anybody who attends. So I will be sending that out tomorrow for you to share, Patrick, you and RJ to share with folks. So just wanted to promote that.
Perfect.
Before I forgot. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. And just for the rest of the general public here as well, where there's been I'm sure you saw maybe in the news, but some reshuffling within City Council, and so we're now working within Office of Civic Life and Dan Ryan's team on just making sure that North Portland Neighborhood Services and all of us are being duly represented within their overarching civic life structure, and a lot of those sorts of ideas that we're going back with the team. But they've been really open and receptive so far, so we're encouraged by some of the communications that have been happening. But as soon as there's any further or more concrete communications, we'll be sure to inform everybody. And then I saw Mark Whitcomb took his mute off. I didn't know if he had a question or comment, or if that was just by mistake.
I took my mute off too. Is the Safer Together block party, like I've already said to the neighbors that I'm going to have one when we get done with our cleanup sometime this summer. But is the one that you were talking about, Paul, is that just for the main purpose being to talk about in the case of an emergency or something?
The theme of what we're doing is talking about disaster resilience, and that's because that's what we were funded to do. But we're going to talk for 15 minutes.
Okay.
And a block party can last hours. I got no problem with anybody talking about anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Michelle.
So I talked about this in the chat, and I've seen people tiptoeing around this conversation for a while. but the St. John's Parade is a staple that has brought people to our neighborhood for decades. But no one seems to know who's in charge of that. The time is coming up for it. We know the bazaar is gonna happen, but is the parade gonna happen? Is there any movement on reaching out to the people who are in charge of the website? Like, is this gonna happen or not? Because time is a wasting.
Yeah. No, definitely agree. And I saw that. And yeah, not trying to be, coy or anything on dancing around, but yeah, we have reached out and have not heard anything back yet. Yeah, I personally don't, we're somewhat of a new board as well. And I know that things have changed a lot since COVID. And I don't know, I think, Leslie and the boosters may be a little bit closer, but I don't want to speak for you, but I don't believe they've heard either. Leslie, any updates on your end?
Like who does anybody own it? Like, it's an unofficial Rose Festival kickoff. Nobody talks about it being an official thing, but the men in white, they show up with their little hats. It's a thing that sets everything up, and it's important to this community, and it has been for a long time. I would really hate for it to just like die.
Yeah.
That would
No,
be
definitely.
that would
And
be a tragedy.
I'm looking at the website right now, and it looks like since the last time I looked, there is a little update. I can just read this verbatim. It says, "Hello, friends and neighbors. We have an update regarding the parade for 2023. We've submitted our permit request to the City of Portland Permit Office. The permit office has strongly urged that the current parade route and stage area be revamped and made smaller. Additionally, there is no guarantee of any traffic safety officers. We're looking into making some changes to streamline efforts and give St. John's Parade a chance of happening in 2023. We are hopeful. We are waiting final answers to share with the community. Thanks for your interest in the parade. It is something special. Finally, many things have changed in the lives of the community members in recent years, whether it be family, health, jobs, or losing loved ones. We're working hard, and we hope to have an update for you very soon. The St. John's Bazaar is managed by a separate organization. For questions about that event, see stjohnsbazaar.com.
No, but maybe the St. John's Neighborhood Association could help. I don't know who's in, I feel like maybe they need more help.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we've reached out, heard nothing back in return. So again, we don't know who exactly is in charge. We will try again. I can give you that, my promise. I will definitely email again and see if there's anything.
To a lot of the families. I know there's a lot of young people moving into this community, and the parade is.
No, I totally am not.
Especially
Yeah,
with all of the new apartments downtown, this is something we can't let go away.
Right, understood. But yeah, just keep in mind, obviously, we are not the planning body there. But yeah, we can absolutely reach out. Yeah, again, I'll email again, see if I can't reach out, and as soon as we can help in any way, more than happy to do so.
I'll volunteer. I'll do whatever. The parade is really important to me in my life.
Yeah.
I miss it.
Great. Well, then I would maybe recommend emailing info@stjohnsparade.org. I'll post the email in the chat as well. Anybody who's interested.
Why don't we either like do an email where Michelle is like CC'd, where we do it and like we try to communicate with them, but if they respond, we can have Michelle take over or something like that. Like, or do you think like volume of people in their inbox will be?
Yeah, like I was in the parade, the last parade they ever had, and I always go to the parade. Like, I love the parade. It was the reason I bought my house here in St. John's in 2004, was the parade. I love it so hard. I love it so much. If it goes away, I'll be really sad. I won't move away, of course, but it's what it just makes this community, this little neighborhood, a town for me.
So I'd love to like have it set up where if we can get in touch with them, we can, like have the liaison where Michelle, you report back to us at our next meeting about where it's at. If we can get in touch with them.
Organizing, I have those skills. I totally do that. Would absolutely love to take that on.
Cool. Do you mind maybe sending me your email address? We can definitely. I'll send that tonight.
In the chat, okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, great stuff, everybody. And so I believe with that, unless if there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and adjourn at 8:43. We're past 8:30, so no need.
Okay, I just entered into the chat the name of the chair
Yep,
for
I
the
saw.
St. John's Parade and the email address that they
Yeah,
post that's available.
just saw that on the website as well, but perfect. Thank you, Bernadine. Yeah, we'll send an email right now. Let's see if we can get them on and get everybody working together. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll adjourn 8:43. Hope to see you in March. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Good night.